find out if the patient do have any wound, find out, if there's any skin breakdown, any area that looks as though it's at risk for insult or injury, because you don't want to be a case where like this, no, somebody's gonna call and make it seem like, I'm not doing my job. Wife has been on the floor in the bathroom for a few hours from after 5 in the morning. So I was asking, so what had happened? Did she fell? Oh no, she came out the wheelchair so she can get a bath. So I went in to do a follow-up for a patient. You can see the patient is homeless. Wherever they took the patient from, the patient hasn't been doing well. So the patient is currently in a home where she pays a little bit of money to stay at the home, and they provide like food. So I got a call from my office regarding the patient to say that I missed the wound. So I'm like, I don't remember having a patient with any wound, and I'm trying to figure out which patient I would have missed a wound on. So there was one patient, which is the same patient that I recall I had seen, and the patient refused for me to evaluate her, and so I went ahead and make a little note, and that was it. But the point of this is make sure you're documenting well. Make sure you're documenting well when you go to these homes for visits. Alright, because if I never documented what was happening at the time, then it would have been said that I missed a necrotic wound on a patient's leg. And I'm like, this is 2 weeks follow-up for a patient that was admitted. So how is it that whoever admitted the patient didn't notice that the patient has a necrotic wound to the right foot? How is it that that is something that you miss on admission? Because what I was told in when I'm working as an emergency room nurse is always do a 4-eye. And when you talk about a 4-eye examination, it means that you and somebody else going to look at the patient to see if there is any skin breakdown or anything. And I'm not saying that when you go to these homes you're gonna have any 4 eyes working with. You only have your 2 eyes working with. So you have to make sure that you don't miss anything. Find out if the patient do have any wound. Find out, if there's any skin breakdown, any area that looks as though it's at risk for insult or injury. Because you don't want to be a case where like this, no, somebody's gonna call and make it seem like, I'm not doing my job. But the good thing about it is that I went ahead and did a thorough note on this patient, because I just know that sometimes, and it's not even because I know, it's just me, when I go in to see my patients, I try to put as much information in the notes, because I don't want it to be said that I never thoroughly evaluated my patient. I don't want it to be said that I never thoroughly evaluated my patient and then something happens and no, people are going to be blaming me. So I was like, no. When I went, if you read the notes, my note says that I didn't do a physical examination. The patient refused to be seen, and so I did let somebody in the office be aware of that, because I don't want anybody to say that I'm supposed to be seeing a patient and I'm not taking the time out to go ahead and see the patient. So that was just it. So I had to make sure that they refer to my notes to see that that wasn't the case. It wasn't anything like that. I didn't see the patient. Because the patient refused. So how am I supposed to be examining a patient or notice that there is a wound when the patient refused the evaluation? So I just let them go ahead and deal with that. But all I'm saying, people, is, or all I'm saying, colleagues, when you're going to see these patients, just make sure that you are doing your best with documenting, because everybody is going to want to put the blame on somebody else. But I don't want anybody to put the blame on me. So I am always going to try to make sure that my notes are done correctly. Alright, I'm going to try to make sure that my notes are done correctly, because I don't want nobody to put the blame on me. So it's always good to make sure you see your patient, evaluate them properly, All right, especially the ones that are lying in bed that are not able to give you much information. Ask the caregiver to help you roll over the patient, because some of the caregivers, yes, they're cleaning up these patients, but they're not really taking a closer look at what is going on. And so you don't want to be a case where the patients are there and there is a big break in the skin, you know, around the bum, the buttocks area, and you miss it. And every time you go there, because you see this patient lying so nicely in bed, covered in blankets and all, you're thinking that the patient is doing okay, when really and truly there is a very big, you know, sacral ulcer there that needs your attention. So just make sure that we're doing our part and evaluating our patients properly, as well as documenting to save yourself as well as your license. All right, so that's all I wanted to just share on that, because as I said, a lot of times that is something that I notice. Persons want to kind of put the blame on another person, especially when they know that they're in the wrong. All right, so just be mindful of that. All right, I'm gonna go in and see another patient, and then I will see you in a few minutes with other stories. Until then, so I have this elderly patient who lives with his well, both of them are on the service and they're in their 80s. The first time I visited the patient's home, I was lost, like literally lost in the house. So it's a very huge house. I was told to come in. I went in, but it was like pitch black. It was like total darkness when I went in, and I just couldn't locate the patient, only to find out that the patient was in like the movie room. All right, and so I went in there. This patient was lying on a recliner. I was there asking for the wife. The wife was now in the bathroom, not in the bathroom. The wife was now in the kitchen, in a wheelchair, leaning forward. The patient's back was curved because of the position that the patient was in for a long time, or has been for a long time, per the husband. So she was there. She had a blanket over her head. Remember, this house is probably about 5 beds, 4 bathroom. You know, they have a movie room, kitchen, living room, and both patients are living in the 2 places you weren't thinking that they would be at this time. So the son goes over to visit the patient, and you know, they bring groceries and all, but apart from that, it doesn't seem like anybody goes there to help out with trying to clean up these patients, try to get them a bath. But yeah, it doesn't seem that way, because this patient was always incontinent after when I go and see them. Sometimes she's in the bathroom just lying on the floor, and I am trying to figure out, okay, then what is happening? You know, you're on the bathroom floor. Who is there to help these patients? And as I say, these are elderly folks who need somebody there around the clock. So my patient says that his wife has been on the floor in the bathroom for a few hours, from after 5 in the morning. So I was asking, so what had happened? Did she fell? Oh no, she came out the wheelchair so she can get a bath. So I went in there. This lady is like in her clothing, well soaked, just curled up in the corner, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So I'm there now trying to find some pieces of clothes, because there's clothes all over, trying to get this lady out of her clothes into something warm. But this lady's not helping me any at all with trying to get up or trying to push her arm, you know, in the shirt or anything. And so I asked the patient to go ahead and call the relative, the son, and it turned out that the son wasn't answering the phone. So he tried calling another friend who is supposed to come and check on them, you know, every once in a while. That person wasn't answering either. And so I said, okay, then we're going to call 911, because he never wanted to call 911 to help, because I cannot take up this patient. I cannot lift this patient out of the bathroom, and he is of no assistance to me either. So the only thing we can do at this time is to call 911 to get some assistance. You understand? So that's what we had to do, and get this patient up, and that was it. As I said, the patient never injured anything. There wasn't any trauma or anything. She was just like sitting there, and that was it. But I tell you, a lot of things these patients go through, it's just so sad. And when I ask why we don't get into a nursing home, the patient is saying that the other patient don't want to, but then the other patient is confused. And then my question goes to the relatives of these patients. If we realize that our relatives are confused, they're of certain age group, you know, and we are not visiting regularly these patients, why are we not making decisions to put them in a facility? I know the facility is not the best, but what's the sense leaving them in a home where neither of the two can help each other? They can't get around because both of them are, you know, in a wheelchair and is just not able to do anything. They're not even able to do their own, you know, basic care. They're not even able to take care of basic, you know, activities of daily living. So how is it that these patients are left alone in these homes? And sometimes they host them big, you know, they host them big. So one person will call from this side to the other side and you can't hear anything. You understand? I am in this house calling, for example, John, where are you? And John is barely answering. I have to be trying to find every light switch in this house, turn on some of the lights in there, because as I said, the place is just pitch dark, black, in order to find my way around to the bathroom. So I don't know, but we need to kind of reevaluate our decisions when it comes on to our elderly folks, because a lot of times we're not making the decisions that, you know, will benefit the patient. I understand it's a hard decision. I understand it's a very, very hard decision for a lot of us. But at the end of the day, make the decision that is going to be right for your parent or your loved one. All right, make sure you're making that decision that will benefit them, and not necessarily making a decision because this is what they want at this time. These folks are confused, so they're not going to want anything else except staying at home, not eating, not drinking, and that's it. All right, so that's all I'm gonna say on that matter. All right. Oh, there's so much traffic and there's so much heavy duty oversized vehicle on the road here right now. I don't know what they're building. You know those little sections that you put inside of the middle of the road when you're on the highway. So there is about 6 trucks in the middle of this 4-lane road heading into Dallas that is keeping up a lot of traffic because they're oversized. So they're in the middle of the road, taking up almost 2 lanes. And then, you know, the other lane on the left and the right, we have to drive in there and just be careful we're not hitting any of those pieces of bricks that are hanging out. All right, so yeah. All right, so I have 10 minutes to go to see my other patient. I am hungry. I need to use the bathroom. I'll tell you about where I go for food on the road and how do I go about with eating when I'm on the road. All right, so I will see you in the next video where I'll share with you some additional information regarding house call visits and my experience or my day working as a house call nurse practitioner. Until then, I will see you in the next video.